G'day, I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us for our 7-day Australia-only forecast, recorded on Thursday, April the 18th. We've got two main features kicking off our weather map today, and these two main features are going to reappear again next week with another setup that's very similar. Let me explain what those two features are. Number one, the southerly flow down here, dropping temperatures in the southeast and spreading cooler air right through the interior. The other main feature, the strong east to southeast winds. Now, they're particularly gusty at the moment up here in the far north Queensland. A little bit of low pressure to the north. We had Cyclone Paul earlier this week, decimated by this southeasterly flow, and lots of high pressure further down over the Tasman Sea. Now, that easterly and the southerlies as well are going to be the main driver of your weather across Australia over the coming 7 days. Let me start to explain it a little better for you. Let's get into Friday's setup. So high pressure is down here south of the country. That is driving in the cooler airflow that you'll be getting from Melbourne to Canberra to Sydney. Even parts of Tasmania are down at the moment thanks to that cooler airflow. I saw an Australian headline the other day that said it was warmer in the east. I was a little confused by it because we're actually seeing cooler than average weather down here at the moment because that airflow is coming not only off the Tasman but out of the Southern Ocean. So when you take a look at the temperature departure from normal, the blue you see here as we go on towards the end part of Friday shows that temperatures are a few degrees below normal for this time of the year. That's because of that southerly flow coming through. If you live in the rest of Australia and wondering why we're not showing you, mostly because the cooler air is down in this corner, but also these maps are actually for New Zealand and just happens to show Australia, so I thought I might as well put it in there. Let's animate the next 48 hours and you'll see it warms up for many places, but not so much the more populated ones. So if you're in Melbourne or Sydney or Canberra, right up to Brisbane, that blue shading means it is cooler than average. Normal around Hobart for the most part. But yeah, temperatures are certainly down as a result of that southerly, and a bigger one is on the way next week. So that's why we're talking about the southerlies and the easterlies. So by Saturday, the southerly portion's fading out as the high that caused it drifts further along. So the winds calm down and the easterlies come in all the way along the eastern side of Australia. Small low up here, nothing to worry about at this stage. Looks as though that southeasterly flow keeps it to the north of you. As we get through to Sunday, a low in the in the Coral Sea gets a little larger. Now, none of the modelling is showing this to be a storm or a cyclone, but it's worth keeping an eye on. Anything in the Coral Sea is always worth monitoring at this time of the year. We are still in the cyclone season for another 10 or 11 days or so. Now, the wet easterly winds are going to be the main feature here, particularly around Brisbane and the New South Wales-Queensland border. It is dry further to the south and not as wet further to the north. But in that particular area, that windy easterly zone, that's where most of the wet weather will be falling, and some of it will go further inland. Now, by Monday, the shading you see here in the purple and the blue, which is not a huge amount, but those areas are getting up over 100 millimetres of rain in just one day. So that's the reason why worth keeping an eye on what goes on there from Bundaberg to Brisbane, basically in that zone. And the further you go down into New South Wales and towards Victoria, the drier it gets. However, over here, you might have noticed the southerly coming in. This is an even bigger one than the one we've got right now. Perth, not a lot of wet weather for you, unfortunately, but your temperatures are dropping. In fact, temperatures all in this area down here. Albany, you'll be 10 degrees cooler on Monday than you were on the Sunday as that southerly kicks in. And it's sliding eastwards. So we get to Tuesday and hello, Adelaide. Your turn to see that temperature drop as that change comes in, this cold southerly. The blue line here really indicates that this southerly is taking a bite out of the atmosphere. It's not just on the surface of the planet where we are, but it goes right up into the atmosphere as well, which means it's decent cold change. Now, that blue line is still south of you, at least in this map anyway, but it indicates warm weather on this side, cooler on the other, and that wet weather around Brisbane and Bundaberg carries on into Tuesday and into Wednesday. Although Wednesday, that easterly is starting to fade, but look at the cold, windy stuff going on down here as we go through the day. Particularly Tasmania, seeing that cold, wet weather coming through. I think you'll see a decent bit of snow up on the mountains and ranges here as we go through the day. And all the wet weather over here, some of that will just be in the form of cloudy, kind of drizzly, showery stuff. But there might be a few thunderstorms as we mix in the warm and the cooler air. Now we go through to Thursday of next week, and still Tasmania under the grips of this much colder southerly change. Melbourne, Adelaide, you'll both be cooler. But out to sea here, still got that low pressure zone, quite a large one. It's not a proper low. It might still change because it's a long way out. But it shows you that there's a little bit of low pressure energy here mixing with the southerly, which means we expect quite a large low to form in the Tasman Sea. It may not be massive in the sense of rainfall for places along the eastern coastline. We're not yet sure about it, but it's worth keeping an eye on because sometimes these Tasman lows can grow and stretch back towards you. But certainly windy, colder southerlies kicking in next week. It is cooler over here, even though it is still dry. And I know you're kind of tired of the dry weather, and you can still see plenty of showers, the blue indicating less than 10 or 15 millimetres for most of you. So not a huge amount of rain, but certainly some rain welcome. Here is the 7-day rainfall map. So you can see really Bundaberg to Brisbane, that's the area in the 150 millimetre mark or more. It just depends on exactly how those downpours line up. But either way, looks like a bit of a drenching here for the southern part of Queensland and for the top as well. Not huge amounts further down towards Sydney, you're kind of on the borderline of it. And Tasmania getting 50 to 60 millimetres of rain, throw in that southerly, turns to snow higher up on the top of the mountains. Mount Wellington might even get a dusting of snow there near Hobart. And Melbourne to Adelaide, not looking too wet. And Perth certainly not looking overly wet and dry in the middle of the country. Our place of the day, it is Darwin. Look at the Darwin. There's the city centre for you. Flew over it yesterday. A few clouds around. There is the airport there. And the weather was quite pleasant. And your weather, look at the week ahead. Mostly dry. Not too bad. Pretty warm though. 33 to 35 degrees. Of course, with that humidity, makes it feel much hotter than that. And your overnight lows feels like you're in the 30s. So certainly warm, even if it is looking mostly dry and a little bit turbulent there. I'm glad that's not a real flight. That is all from me. Enjoy the rest of your week. We'll see you on Monday.